Perfect. All right. So Anypoint was, so basically, why do we need Anypoint monitoring, right? So it gives you complete visibility into your APIs, your infrastructure, and it gives you the tools to, proactively monitor and diagnose issues, so that when you have deployed applications into production, you have the tools to keep the lights on. Basically, you are doing whatever possible to minimize the impact of production issues, so that you're proactively alerted. You can quickly identify the issues if in case an issue happens, and you want to utilize the tools and features that the platform provides you out of the box to ensure that all your applications are stable and reliable once you deploy that to production. So it also, we'll see how it helps reduce the mean time to identification, because that is the goal. You don't want to spend, you have your own SLAs when you have your SEV 1, SEV 2, SEV 3 issues. So if you want to meet those SLAs, how does the platform help you quickly identify the issues and reduce the time to find the root cause? We'll look into all of that. We'll also talk about Visualizer, what Visualizer is, what are the different views that Visualizer provides, how your different teams within your organization can use it. So we'll look into all that, and then we'll dive into Anypoint monitoring, because it's better to, when you start troubleshooting, you can keep Visualizer as your first step, and then dive into the monitoring dashboards to further, get into the granular levels and identify what the issue is. So Visualizer has 3 different views. So it can be used for 3 different purposes. One is architecture, one is troubleshooting, and the other is policy compliance. So your architecture team can use Visualizer for a certain purpose. Your operations team can use Visualizer as a starting point for troubleshooting issues in production. And your security team can use Visualizer to identify what are the APIs that are compliant if they want certain security policies to be applied to an API. What are the APIs that have those policies, and what are the APIs that do not have? So let's, like I said, I'll look into the platform so that it'll be easier. But I can show you examples of how it looks. All right. So first, let's look into the architecture view. I know it's a little bit this thing, but I hope everybody can see. So if you can see here, this is your this is a sample application network, and it gives you a complete bird's eye view of your entire application network. So you have options to select, your environment. If you have multiple, of course, you'll have multiple environments. If you have, you can select the specific environment in which the APIs are deployed. When you create a new API and deploy it to production, you can assign the API to certain layers. So you can do customization in your view. So bear in mind, you should have the Visualizer editor permission in access management to be able to do any customizations in Visualizer. But you can, by default, if you are running your application or an API or a proxy in a supported Mule instance, like it's 3.8.7, and after that, it should be easily discovered, and all its dependencies should be discovered and displayed in Visualizer. So the only permission that you will need to do any customization to your views is the Visualizer editor in access management. So first, architecture view, right? What use cases does this help you with? So it like I said, it helps you understand the current state of your architecture. So if you have a project coming up, right, and if you want to understand how the APIs are interacting with one another in your ecosystem currently, and how the new APIs that you add, how it will impact your existing APIs. To do that analysis, this will be very helpful. You can just export this image and take it to a meeting to your business stakeholders to show them how the APIs currently interact. You also have your your backend systems that are identified, and your external your mobile app or a client application. You have all of that, so you can get a bird's eye view of how the APIs interact with one another, and you can use it for understanding the current state of your architecture. You can also use this second, which is very important to ensure that you're following the API-led connectivity. it is very important for MuleSoft to follow the API-led connectivity. We don't want any point-to-point connections. You don't want the experience API directly talking to the backend system, or the process API bypassing the system APIs. You want to get that reusability out of the platform, and this helps you understand if you are architecting your solutions in the right way. So this helps you understand if you're following the API-led connectivity, and you're categorizing your APIs accordingly. So when you have a new API deployed to production, you can assign them to one of these layers accordingly. So like I said, you can customize them, right? So for example, you have these layers, and you can define these layers when you deploy the APIs. And you can, if you're deploying a system API, you can accordingly assign them to the system API layer, so that they'll be assigned to this layer. If they're not assigned to a layer, they'll be hanging separately. So it is up to you to make sure that you assign them to the appropriate layers accordingly. And you can automate that as well when you deploy. You don't have to do it manually every time. You can, in your CI/CD pipeline, you can automate the allocation of the layers through properties in your CI/CD pipeline. So once you have done that, you understand if your APIs are, you see here, you understand the dependencies between your API, so that if a new project, if you have to make changes to this particular process API, you know that it has all these are dependent on them. So this experience API and this process API also use this process API. So you have to you do that impact assessment to what the impact will be to those APIs. And this gives you quick, you don't have to go to your developers and try to understand, get all those SMEs. You don't have that dependency. You can easily identify from the visualizer what is the impact to the other APIs. And these are some of the use cases from an architecture perspective, how visualizer will help you. So you can also add tags. Tags is basically categorizing your API. So for example, if you want a couple of APIs to be under a specific project, and you want to then see only those project APIs, here you can assign them tags, and then you can select only those tags, so that you will see only project one APIs. So the APIs that are changed as part of project one, you can see all those APIs if you add them to a particular tag. So it helps you with categorization as well. So you can do all of this, and it's easier because you have them all in a single pane, and you can make your solution. You can design your solutions in a much more effective way. Second view is troubleshooting. So if you just change this view, look at this. So you have certain metrics that are populated automatically. These are updated in real time. So for example, if you have a production issue, right, and you are told that one of your customers has complained, and you want to identify which this thing is doing wrong. So you can go and see if there are any failures in any of the APIs. So if you see here, this is just a random example. So if you can see here, you can see that this API is failing 50% of the time. It could be an issue with the Salesforce connectivity. So you can quickly deep dive into this particular API. So similarly, if you want to understand if they say the response time is not good as expected, you get that as well. You can your response time, which is an average of the response time based on your inbound and outbound connections. So they are already populated, and you can see how they are performing in your current production environment. And then you can deep dive into it. That's why I said you can use this as a starting point when you are troubleshooting for production issues, so that you already know where the problem is, and then you can deep dive into that area to understand more as to what the problem is. And that is where the Anypoint monitoring will come into help. So how do you, before we deep dive, I'll look into the other one. The third one is, of course, the policies. So this was I think this was released end of last year, 2019. So this is about policy compliance. So if you want to understand if your APIs comply with mandatory policies, so first of all, you have this overview which says each API, how many policies you have applied. So you have 3 policies applied to this API, you have 4 applied to this API. First of all, you know that there are certain policies applied to each of this API. And then if you want to understand, so if I want to understand what are all the policies in my ecosystem that have client ID enforcement. you can just select it and you know automatically. So if it is a if it is a company recommendation that every API that is deployed to production should have the client ID enforcement policy applied, you know that these APIs are not compliant. And it's very common, right? Client ID enforcement is very useful. You know who is who's accessing your APIs. So this will help you understand which APIs are not compliant. So this can be used by a security team if they want to do some kind of audit, or even by your your architecture team, just to make sure that the APIs are being developed correctly and are compliant as per the company standards. So these are some of the use cases that Visualizer will help you with. And like I said, for customizing the views, you need the Visualizer editor permission. And you also need to do for the data in case of on-prem and on-prem deployment model and RTF, right? For the data to be sent to the platform, you need to enable a property which is called an enable header injection. So this property will, in case of on-prem, you will enable the header injection at the server level. You cannot do it at each application level. So for each server, when you register it with Runtime Manager, you will have to set a property, Anypoint Platform agent header injection disabled equal to, by default it will be disabled. So you should make disabled as false, so that the data will start flowing and it will be able to correctly display the connections between each of the nodes. So it is basically to transfer the data from your on-prem servers to the platform. And similarly for RTF, the only difference is the same header has to be set, but it can be done at the application level. For the on-prem instance, it can be done only at the server level. It cannot be done at the application level. So if you, by chance, if you want to disable it, you can disable it by just disabling the property. So these are some of the use cases of Visualizer. And like I said, for troubleshooting, right? So take, for example, there's some issue with this Customer 360 API, and I want to, deep dive. So it is seamlessly integrated with the Anypoint monitoring platform. So you have this option you have the details, and you also have this option monitoring. So if you click on this dashboard, it automatically takes you to the Anypoint monitoring the Anypoint monitoring section, where I have Titanium currently. So this account has Titanium. That's why you're seeing all these options. So we will go through what are the options you'll see in Platinum and what are the options you'll see in Titanium. But it automatically, you can jump to Anypoint monitoring to do more deeper analysis. So that was Visualizer. So let's then get into Anypoint monitoring. So Anypoint monitoring, like I said, I'll be switching between this. So I'll just make sure I covered everything. So I spoke about the 3 views, the architecture, troubleshooting, and policies. We spoke about how Visualizer can be used by your architecture team, your operations team, and your policy compliance to ensure that. Yeah, these are some of the options. If you have failures, this is how it will look, so that you can quickly deep dive into each of them. And there you go, policy. If you select certain policies and you want to understand which are the APIs compliant, you can easily get that bird's eye view and understand which are compliant and which are not. Like I said, you can automate the assignment of tags and layers in your CI/CD pipeline by setting the properties, and it can be automated. And ideally, your layers can be anything, but because we want to stick with the API-led connectivity, it's better if you have experience process and system API, so that you understand and it adheres to that API-led connectivity. All right, so let's get into Anypoint monitoring. Anypoint monitoring, the main components of Anypoint monitoring is performance monitoring, the application performance monitoring, what are the metrics available to you to help you get that end-to-end visibility. How can your business, get an insight into how the APIs are delivering value? We'll see that as well, how custom metrics will help with that. And log management is something that you get only with Titanium, how it performs log aggregation, how you can, to get that end-to-end visibility, what are the log search features that Titanium gives you. We'll look into all of that. So Yeah, this is what you get with Platinum. So you get under each section I've just specified for application performance monitoring. You get the out-of-the-box metrics, which is like around 80 plus metrics. You get API functional monitoring, and you get basic alerting. For log management, this is basically your runtime logs. You don't get any log management features in Anypoint monitoring if you don't have Titanium. So this is your logs and log search available in Runtime Manager, and they have a retention period. I believe it is 100 MB per application per worker. So after that, you don't have access to them. So basic log search. And of course, custom metrics. These are just the basic dashboards that you can create, but you cannot, you cannot send custom metrics, that is business metrics from your application without Titanium. And of course, it is a shared monitoring infrastructure. We'll discuss the specifics and the differences between each of that. And these are the ones that you get in addition when you do Titanium. So we'll look into all of this. So let's first look into this application performance metrics. And what are available. So if you go here, you see we have the overview tab, which is, and before I forget, you need the Anypoint monitoring user permission in access management. You need to have the permission to be able to view and make changes. So if you, one more thing, it was a cool feature, like if you have Titanium, you can actually ensure that all applications that get deployed to CloudHub have Anypoint monitoring enabled by default. You don't have to go and enable them one by one. So this is called like automatic enabling of Anypoint monitoring. So you can just ensure that any new applications is deployed to CloudHub will have Anypoint monitoring enabled by default. All right. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so just to go back to this thing, so we have the overview tab, which gives you an idea of, first of all, as an enterprise, you need to come up with all the metrics that you want to monitor. You need to set those thresholds that, those SLAs that you want to meet. So this gives you an idea of what are the metrics that are available already, the platform already, what are the metrics it gives you. Like your inbound calls, number of calls, the success and the failure calls, the average response times, the number of Mule messages processed by each application. Let me just this thing, it'll be much. You can change the time frame, so it gives you much better view. So you can also the outbound calls that you make, the response time to that. And it's just a summary of all the metrics that you see, but it gives you an idea of what are the metrics that you already have. Because if your architecture is like, if you're more of, a synchronous process where you have a lot of flows that are, invoked by your external clients, but their HTTP calls, for your performance and response time will be of most importance. But if you have asynchronous, where you do a lot of backend processing, where you don't worry about the performance, but reliability is more important, you can actually monitor the connector metrics. If you're using MQ connector or third-party message broker, you can focus on that. So it depends, and this tells you what are the metrics that are already available and out of the platform, and it will help you set those as an enterprise. You'll be able to set those metrics and come up with those metrics that have to be monitored. So if you see inbound and outbound, basically these are the inbound metrics, like how your what are the total requests, whether they were success or failure, the response time, by each endpoint like you have, and you 99% of the time how your APIs are performing. These are all things that you will want to do when you if you talk to your operations team, and if there's a production issue, even after the production issue was resolved, they will be asked to take reports of how the API was performing within this period of time, 90% of the time how it is performing. So these things are automatically available to you, and you don't have to write queries to come up with deduce them. These are out of the box available to you. So there you go. You see total slow request by endpoint. You can actually then jump into these requests and identify why these specific requests were slow, things like that. Similarly for outbound, For flows, these are the flow metrics. Now I told about end-to-end visibility, right? So assume I have this main flow, customer 360 main flow, and it has two private flows or two subflows, whatever, get customer ID and get orders. The actual issue might be in one of these flows, right? So I need to understand. If I don't have this view, I need to go deep dive, look into the log, see how much each flow, what was the time taken for processing the request in each flow. This gives me all that automatically, how each flow is performing, and what is the characteristics of each flow, what is the response time, the time taken for each flow separately to process, say 21 milliseconds, which is good. If there was any problem, it will show up. It also gives you average, the failures, everything with respect to the flow metrics. So this is very helpful if you want to do deep dive and do the end-to-end tracking. This is only available in Titanium, if I'm not wrong. Flow metrics and similarly connector metrics. If you're using connectors in your Mule application, right, and you want to understand how the connectors are performing. So in this case, this API is using the HTTP connector. So what is the response time for those HTTP calls? If you have Salesforce connectors, you will see metrics specific for them. If you have database, similarly that. So this connector metrics, web service, file transfer, everything. So it gives you metrics around those connectors. And if there are issues around those, you can focus on that. So this is also very helpful, and it is available in Titanium. Performance. This would be like, how is my API performing? So I get so many messages within this period of time. I can, you can also do this. You can deep dive. You just have to select and you can deep dive into this. So I have so many metrics, so many messages within this process, this time, and how my endpoint were performing. Same thing, the 99% which I spoke about, right? The 75% of times it was between 4 to 5 seconds, the response time. So it's pretty good. But if we had issues, we can then deep dive into what the problem was. Similarly, for failures, you have like how many requests were failed and how many were successful, things like that. And JVM is very helpful if you want to do performance profiling, if you want to understand how the memory is allocated, how many threads are allocated, if you are having a memory leak. So if you can run a performance test, and at that time, you can actually monitor these metrics to understand whether the garbage collection is happening properly, if there is any memory leak, if the thread is not, if the thread is hung, if there are hung threads and they're not getting released, which process is actually doing that, how much is the heap usage. All these metrics would be very helpful when you do your performance profiling. So this dashboard helps you get that insight. Similarly, your infrastructure, everything I said, CPU utilization, all your whether your CPU utilization is beyond a specific threshold, whether your system, how it is performing, your OS, how it is performing, all those things you get. So these are some of the out-of-box metrics you get. Of course, some are within Titanium. I have it in my documentation, like flows and connectors. But this gives you an end-to-end visibility and helps you quickly. You have the tools readily available to start debugging issues in production. And deep diving into where the problem is, whether it could be a connector, whether it could be a flow, an HTTP call, whether it could be a performance issue, things like that. So this is where the built-in dashboards will help you. Like I said, the best practice is always establish within the enterprise what you want to monitor, set the SLAs, and then start utilizing the out-of-the-box dashboards that are available to build out those metrics. All right. So now, if you have Titanium, right, you have a great option. Like for example, if you feel this is too much, like yeah, I have all this, but I want to customize these dashboards, right? If I want to do more, something that will help me. For example, if I want to just the connectors alone, I want them in a custom dashboard, so that I can look at that every time. I don't have to come here and do this. You can do that. So in Titanium, you have this option to actually save this dashboard, like custom connectors. And they will be saved in your custom dashboard section. So you have this option to, so you've already everything, whatever was displayed there, the query, the time frame, everything is saved to a custom dashboard. And one important thing here is you actually you can configure these dashboards. So you can you have this previously set up, and so if you want, you can configure them. You can do other configurations. Like for example, if you want to create a new dashboard, right? Like for example, if you have a project and for that specific project you want all the metrics in one dashboard, like your performance, your connector, and everything for APIs in a specific project. You can do that. You can create a new dashboard and start configuring them to use the metrics that are available. Another thing is you can set up alerts. So these are called advanced alerts. So for example, if I, let me do it like this. So let me do a new dashboard. So I want to create a new dashboard. I want a graph, and I want to configure them based on their CPU utilization. For example, I want to know, if the CPU utilization is beyond a certain this thing, or the average response time is beyond a certain, for the endpoint is beyond, if it goes beyond 5 seconds, I want to be notified. So I can always set this up, and I can set up an alert from my customized dashboard, so that I can be notified when it is above, when the average response time is above 10% or 5 seconds. So that's 5,000 milliseconds, right? So whenever it is above that, I will be notified. So it will be sent to me, and the notification is I can add my email here. I can add my email here. And whatever message I want to be notified. So your operations teams can be notified in case whenever it goes beyond that particular threshold, they will get an email and they can be notified proactively. So this advanced alerting can be set up, which is very important, right? You don't want to be notified only after the product issue happens. You want to be notified before it happens. So you can start setting up these alerts. And again, it is important not to set everything as a red alert. You want to be proactive, and you want to set up alerts that will help you reduce the issues that you see in production. So you have to come up with alerts like when the threshold is below 75%, there is something going wrong, so I want to be notified. So when the CPU utilization is above 70%, or if the calls, if you get like 2-3 alerts where over a sustained period of time the response time is above 5 seconds, then it's not just a one-off issue. Definitely something is going on in the back end that you need to check. So these are like yellow alerts, not just red alerts where it's a showstopper and you have to quickly start looking into it. You can come up with these alerts which will help you proactively reduce the occurrence of those Sev1 issues. So you can configure these advanced alerts when you have Titanium. You can save built-in dashboards as a custom dashboard and configure these advanced alerts. I believe every organization gets up to 20 advanced alerts limit that can be set up, and then you can notify your operations teams. The basic alerts that I said, which you get in Platinum, is, if you see here, you'll have two options. So advanced alerts is what I just did. You have to build your custom dashboard, and then you can add alerts to that. Basic alerts are basic, like for an application, what would be the basic alerts? Your error count, your response time, CPU utilization, thread count, basic alerts that you will, any organization will want to need, right? You can set those up, whether it's specific to your application or to your server. It's just basic. And bear in mind, you also have alerts in Runtime Manager and API Manager. Runtime Manager is more specific to your servers. Like if you have on-prem servers and you have a cluster, you have multiple nodes in the cluster, you want to be notified when a node goes down. Immediately, you want to be notified. Or if when your deployment is successful, you want to be notified. You can set all of that over there. In addition to that, you get these Anypoint monitoring alerts, which is both the basic alerts and the custom, advanced alerts that you can set up. Screen is stuck. 1 minute. Okay. All right. So back to custom dashboards. So another thing that you can do with custom dashboards, in addition to, we spoke about how to help your operations teams, right? You can either save the built-in dashboards as a custom dashboard and set alerts with that, or you can create your own dashboards with the metrics for a specific project, or you can do any sort of customization, which will help you understand and get that insight as to how your APIs are performing. In addition to that, if you want to have dashboards that you can present to your business stakeholders, like for example, it could be a retail company, and you want to understand an API could be submitting so many orders every day, and that in turn brings in so much revenue to the company. So you want to understand those metrics. You want to present them to your business dashboards. You want to collect that metrics from your APIs first, and then you want to present it to your business stakeholders, where you can show them that every day we process so many orders and we had so many dollars income because of this, and this is how it's performing. So those business metrics is where the custom metrics will come into play. So we have a custom metrics connector. I quickly wanted to show you, it's very simple how you just let me just open my studio. So if you have a Mule application, you can collect those metrics from your Mule application and then publish those metrics to the platform, and then use those metrics in the custom dashboards so that you can build out those visualizations for your business stakeholders. So for example, it's a simple Mule application. So imagine I have a Mule application that receives an account ID as a URI parameter. It calls a database, and it fetches details for that URI parameter, and then it creates a record in Salesforce. This is a very simple example. So it fetches details from our database and creates a record in Salesforce. If I want to, in that details, I have it's an account ID, right? So I have the name, the city, the postal code, and the address, and all those things. If I want to get metrics like how many records were created every day for this city, just an example, or for this postal code. So I can actually publish those metrics and use them in my dashboard. So you just have to add a module. So you can search in Exchange for the custom metric, the Anypoint custom metrics connector, and you can just add them. And if you see here, you have this operation send custom metrics. So after I create the record in Salesforce, I will be publishing those metrics, right? And it's very simple. There is just two options that have to be specified. So I'll just give a name to my metric. And if you see here, the two options are dimensions and facts. Dimension is actually the actual metric that has to be published to the Anypoint platform. So for example, I said city, right? So I have, so in the request, I have captured and set it to a variable so that I know what the thing is. So I can use those metrics, like for example, billing city, I give the name of the dimension, and I can just do a dot. The payload, account payload has the city. So I can pass those metrics in dynamically from my application using this out-of-the-box connector. So postal code similarly. So and facts is nothing but the number of users. So bear in mind, facts should always be a numerical value. It cannot have any other value. It should always be numerical. So in this case, I will just give as number, and I'll give the value as 1. So simple, that's it. I've configured my custom metric connector, and now every time this API, so this you can visualize in any scenario. Like I said, order creation in SAP, or the number of the revenue generated. Don't publish the entire payload. Of course, it's only important business metrics that you can use in your dashboard. So once you can collect those metrics and publish this, and then once you deployed your application, right, you can use those metrics. In fact, I had deployed this, but that was for a different account. Let me show that to you. In fact, yeah. This is the API, and like I said, in the custom dashboard section, you can actually use that metric. So for that, all you need to do is you have to have this advanced modes enabled, because to use custom metrics you have to set up the query, and over here you will have the option. So these are all the out of the box metrics that are already available to you, and you have this option custom metric. So if your application is publishing custom metric, you will be able to pull that custom metric in your dashboard, and then you just have to give details like your org id, your environment id, and your app id, the application ID. So I was doing the Salesforce metrics, right? So similarly, the actual metric that we gave, right? So we pass both the billing city and the postal code. So you can specify you will have them already here because it's being published. And so you can specify the billing city. Sorry, I don't want to fill. I can do, and this select is actually the fact that you gave. So in this case, it was the count of the users that it created. And instead of doing a mean, I'll probably do a sum. So there you go. So this is just a simple thing, how to use the metric and give it a name, probably account metrics. Yeah. So this is just an example. Like if you see in the last 3 hours, there you go. You can see, and you see this says undefined. So I missed out. You can actually define the legend that you see here. So I'm going to group it based on the billing city. So I'll probably give it as billing city. That was this thing, right? The metric that I used. Here, Chennai, for example, it was just a city that I had, hit the request. So it is actually, you can see if you have like more. Yeah, there you go. So you have grouped them according to the cities, and you can see how many requests you received on a day-to-day basis for each of those cities. So that you can then present this. You can do much more customization and present this to your business stakeholders so that they get an idea of how much revenue was generated, how many orders were submitted, how many records were created with this city, and they're able to visualize that from the business side. They will also be happy how your APIs are delivering business value. So this is just an example. How to use the custom metrics and how to build the dashboards out of those metrics. All right, so next is the reports. Yeah, so reports is, let me go back to that, sorry. There's a lot of this thing, so I'm going, it's easier for me to, sorry, I was looking into this API, right? Okay. All right. So next is reports. So reports is basically if you want to, for all the applications in an environment, not just one application, but if you want to get a summary of the, how all the applications in production environment, how they are performing, like how's their performance, how many requests they are getting, for the last 7 days, how many requests they are getting. If you want to get that report, you want to extract it and then probably use it in your weekly meetings or cadence calls. This provides you that. So it gives you an a complete you can compare the application health, the resource usage, the performance across the apps in an environment, and you can use it for your whatever purpose, like presenting to anybody. So this gives you like a summary of how the applications are performing in a particular environment, all the CPU utilization, all the memory utilization. So reports help you, and you can export it as a CSV file and then present it to your stakeholders. So you have this option as well. So we spoke about alerts. Basic alerts you get in Platinum. You get up to 50 basic alerts if you have Platinum, and if you have Titanium, you get up to 100 basic alerts. And advanced alerts, we saw how you can save built-in dashboards. You can create your own custom dashboards and create alerts out of that. We saw custom metrics for business metrics, how you can publish them out of your Mule application and then use them in your custom dashboards. And functional monitoring is basically it's a health check. So it's very important to have some monitors in production to ensure that your APIs are up and running. So you can in previous days, I remember in my old companies, we had set up custom monitors, write some code and create some utilities to keep pinging and, hitting a particular service every 10 minutes to ensure that the service is up and running, it is performing, it is returning response within the expected SLA. So you don't have to do custom utilities for that. You have functional monitors already available. So you can just configure them. You can create a monitor. You can specify the endpoint. You can the endpoint of your API, and then you can you can schedule it every 15 minutes, hourly, daily, so that it keeps polling that pinging that API, and you know that the API is up and running. And if you have an issue, for example, let me give you something. SAP something. Okay. You can actually, when you have an issue, you can integrate it with, you can have these webhooks that you can integrate with a series of platforms like Slack, New Relic, or even email. If you want to be notified through email, you can do that. So that you have these proactive monitors available that keeps checking the APIs, whether they're up and running. And, you have that kind of, peace of mind, so that if in case you start getting you set up 5 alerts and you suddenly get 5 one API may be down at a particular period of time because of a backend system, fine, it's going to be up and available. But if you get like continuous alerts every for the 15 minutes or half an hour, definitely something is wrong, and then you can jump into and look into the monitoring to understand what is going on. This is also an idea like how you can proactively monitor your APIs, your critical APIs, that is, your customer-facing APIs. So ideally, you can have your experience APIs over here. You can create your monitors for your experience APIs, so that if they internally they use system APIs that connect to your backend system, and if there is any issue, you will be notified. So that's where functional monitoring will help you. Functional monitoring is available even in Platinum, so it's not a Titanium feature. It's available even in Platinum. Next one is log management. Let me just go back. I forgot about the PPT. Sorry. So we spoke about we spoke about application metrics. Like I said, there are 80 plus out-of-the-box metrics that help you get a range of information and gives you insight into how your APIs are performing. It gives you that end-to-end visibility, so that your operations team can leverage those metrics. Flow metrics is in it's in Titanium feature, and you get flow level metrics so that you can pinpoint those poor responding flows. Connector metrics, like we saw, it is also a Titanium feature, very useful. In fact, in my experience with many customers, this connector metrics has been very useful in identifying where that bottleneck is, which connector, which backend system is causing the issue. Connector metrics have been very useful. Basic alerting, like I said, you can do the basic alerts that you can set up in. You also have the alerts in Runtime Manager and API Manager. So you can, in addition to that, you can set up these basic alerts, or you can do the advanced alerting that we did in the custom dashboards. They are built and tied to the custom dashboard graphs, and we can set up the alerts so that if you have the CPU utilization for a particular set of APIs for a particular project, and if one person want to be notified for that, you can do that. It's all custom. It's a custom alert that goes to a specific team, so that you can easily identify what the issue is. And same thing, reports. We spoke about that. The alert types, like I said, in Runtime Manager, you have these deployment failed, worker not responding. Your node is down in an on-prem environment. You have those options in Runtime Manager. And in API Manager, you have like if a policy violation happens, if a response time, you can set up those in addition to what you get in the Anypoint monitoring. And reports, like we said, to compare the application health and performance. And of course, functional monitoring to ensure that their monitors are set up and you proactively monitor your APIs to ensure that they're up and running. You keep pinging them, and This can be both public and private. You can be within a VPC. If you have a cloud environment within a VPC, you can set up a private monitor as well as a public monitor. There is documentation on how to set up those monitors. It's BAT CLI. So you can create monitors both for public and private locations. Ideally, if you set it up for your experience APIs, it will be very helpful. We also spoke about custom metrics. We saw how to easily publish those metrics from your Mule application and then use them in your dashboards, so that these are some of the examples: the revenue per order, the customer conversion rate. You get all those visibility. Your business stakeholders get those visibility, and it's pretty useful. All right, log management. Like I said, basic log with Platinum, you don't get any of those features that you saw in the platform. It's basic logging and search that you get in Runtime Manager. So you don't get any log aggregation. So the logs within your different Mule applications and your infrastructure logs, they're all not aggregated in your Platinum. So you just get the basic log search capabilities. And it stores, CloudHub stores up to 100 MB of log data per application per worker, or up to 30 days, whichever limit is reached first, and then you lose the log. For Titanium, let's go back to the platform. You get this. One thing is, of course, like I said, right, from this dashboard, built-in dashboard, you can actually jump into, let's do last probably 3 days. Yeah, you can jump into the logs directly from there, so that you already have them. This thing, you get a lot of features. Like, this is an aggregated log. This is aggregated across multiple sources, such as different applications, your infrastructure logs, and if you want to search for a particular thing, right? For example, like if you take some or a string and you want to do some search, you can easily search for it, and you get all the log entries where the particular string is available. And you have two features: you can either view it as a table or a JSON if you want to do more analysis on that. You also have this option to view surrounding logs. So this is nothing but what are the logs that happened before this, like 5 hours before this, if I'm not wrong, and 5 hours after that. So see, only 3 could be found, but 5 older logs before and after. That's what you get when you do this thing. And surrounding logs. And similarly, you can create a lot of filters. So you have these options. You already have these inbuilt filters, which is the application class, the environment, the timestamp. So for example, if I want to do timestamp is between this date to this date, right? And if I want to save that filter over here, I can do that. I can create my own filter, or I can also write queries and set up, there is documentation how to create the queries, and then save that as a filter. So that, if somebody else wants to use those filters, they already have them available. So you can start setting up those filters as and when if you have some issues that which are frequent issues, and you just want to have those filters ready so that you can search for those logs, you can do that. You can set up those filters and add them, save them, so that anybody can then use those filters. You can also do a search and save that search itself, the search result, so that tomorrow if somebody wants to use, they can view the saved search and use that search. It's already available. They don't have to write the query again. So all this you get with Titanium. This auto refresh is also, if I'm not wrong, a Titanium option. With Platinum, you can only do a manual refresh, but this auto refresh is also a Titanium option. So these are some of the things that you can do to get that end-to-end visibility. Worker logs, a specific worker. If you have 2 workers, you'll have 2 entries, environment specific. So you can do a lot of filtering on your logs, and you can save filters and do querying to get much more deeper insight. Whereas you don't get any of these options if you don't have Titanium. Okay, so like I said, so Titanium, you also, with regards to the storage, you get around 200 GB storage. That is per production core. It's not per application. So it is per production core. All the applications deployed in the core will be using that same storage. So it's 200 GB and 50 GB per pre-prod. And you also are able to select your geographical location for your logs. So either US East, I believe there are two options. There is US East, which is Northern Virginia, and or European Union Frankfurt. So you can also have custom log retention. The time period. You can actually talk to MuleSoft support, and it could be a self-prescribed time limit. You get all of these options with respect to logging if you have this Titanium. And next one is log points. So this is nothing but so assume you have a scenario where you're front-ending a non-Mule application with a Mule proxy. So it's a non-Mule application, and you have a proxy in front of it, and you want to find out what is the request, the request details and the response details that is invoking that particular proxy. So you don't have to do any changes to your proxy. You don't have to do any deployment. You don't have to do any changes to your code. You can actually set up log points so that they are immediately reflected in your logs. So, for example, if you see this Customer 365 API, this is an API, right? API proxy. So for this, if you see here, I have two options. For the request, I can say I have all these properties, and if I select any of these and click save and apply, right, they will start to be filtered in your logs. So you didn't do any code change, you didn't do any deployment. You can just do configuration and have those log points logged in your logs, so that but bear in mind, it's very, very important point. Don't do this if you don't have any issue or not. If you're not doing it for debugging purpose, it is known to have some performance issues. So use it only if you have any debugging issues. If you want to do debugging for a small period of time and you want to see what are the values for these request and response headers, you can do the same thing. You can start logging this without any change to your code, and they'll start filtering in your logs. Similarly, this is for an API proxy, right? If you have an application like our application, right? If you have an application, what you can do, you can set log points for your connectors. So if you're using various connectors in your Mule application, and you want certain you can set the levels, and you want certain data to be logged from those connector metrics, you can do that. For your applications, it's connector level metrics. And for your API, it's the request and response headers, all without any code change or any redeployment. So it's quite useful for debugging purpose. Like I said, don't do them. Once you have completed debugging, please disable them. It's recommended to disable them. But this will help you because it's quick. You're not doing any deployment. If you just want those additional insight, you're not able to understand what is the issue causing the performance issue or the delay, you can add those log points to quickly identify and filter them onto your logs so that you can see what the values are. We call this codeless logging. It's called log points now, but it was also known as codeless logging because you're not doing any code change. This one, last one, raw data. So you can download the data for any app. So, for example, if you want to, download them and do some analysis on your end, you have those available. Like I said, you don't have this in Platinum, but in Titanium you can download these logs and then do analysis on them. You can specify date, like for example, 1/11/2020. You have the logs for that date. Like I said, there's 200 GB of capacity, so you can download the logs and then do analysis on them. I think we also have a archive API, a platform API available, monitoring archive API. So if you, I have not used it, but I think that will also give you the older logs. You can use those platform APIs to get your older logs and information about that. Cool. And these are some of the tools that we have. So ServiceNow integration, like if you want to, you can add this connector in your Mule application to integrate with ServiceNow. If you want to create a ServiceNow ticket in case you have you had an exception in your code, a 500 exception or a 404 not found something, and you want to immediately create a ticket in ServiceNow, you can integrate with ServiceNow and create those tickets and incidents, and they can be then assigned, right? ServiceNow automatically assigns it to your operation teams and they can start looking to it. So we do provide integration with ServiceNow, and we also, the log tokenization. We'll talk about this. This is a feature in Runtime Fabric only. It's not available in Cloud Hub, where if you want to mask your PII data, right? Your sensitive data. You can actually create a log tokenization service, and you can apply that as a policy in your API manager for your runtime fabric applications, so that you can then you can tokenize your sensitive data. It does not change the format. Like a credit card number is 41111 hyphen 2222, right? It does not change the format, but it only tokenizes it. So you can either, and you can also use it as a connector within your Mule application. So you can either use it as a connector in your Mule application or as a policy in your API manager. You can do both, but this is only for Runtime Fabric, and soon it will come to Cloud Hub as well. But this will help you, mask those sensitive information in your logs. And finally, settings. Yeah, you. This is where you will enable your monitoring for your application. Like I said, you have this option now to enable by default newly deployed Cloud Hub applications, but you also can enable it here for Cloud Hub. And for hybrid, for your on-prem, you'll have to download the Anypoint monitoring agent and install it. And then once you follow these instructions, you should see the metrics starting to appear in your dashboard. I had spoken about the header injection, right? So it will pass the data, and you should be able to do it. Runtime Fabric, it is automatically enabled for all Runtime Fabric applications. That was it. I hope I covered everything. Just a minute. So we spoke about log management, the advanced search capabilities. All these are in Titanium. And codeless logging, we spoke about that, log points, and log warehousing, tokenization, which I spoke about, RTF, where it does not change the format, but just tokenizes the data. And with regards to storage, like I told you, for Platinum, it's 100 MB per application per worker, and it is only in US East, Northern Virginia. You don't have the choice to change your geographic location. But for Titanium, you get 200 GB per prod code, and you have this choice of geographic location. And you can also request for more additional storage if you contact MuleSoft support. And you get much more capabilities in Titanium. I think, that's all I had.